In September, Tekashi 6ix9ine took the witness stand to testify in federal court against two men, Anthony Harv Ellison and Aljermiah Nuke Mack, both of whom were facing charges for racketeering and firearms crimes. Harv was at one point, I think, a member of the Treyway security, but ended up being charged with crimes in connection to Tekashi's alleged kidnapping and robbery back in 2018, an incident that left the rapper hospitalized. During his court appearance, 6ix9ine testified that the two men were 9 Trey Blood members and they were involved in acts of violence that took place in New York City during 6ix9ine's rapid rise to fame. Just yesterday, Nuke Mack was found guilty of racketeering conspiracy and conspiring to distribute narcotics, while Ellison was found guilty of racketeering conspiracy and kidnapping and robbing Tekashi 6ix9ine, as the New York Times reports. Now, needless to say, they will soon be joining Tekashi's original link to Treyway, Shotti, in prison. And I have to say that I watched one of the few long interviews Shotti did, and at the time he appeared to be kind of smart and have good sense, but his actions appear otherwise. Now, if Tekashi 6ix9ine had just been a kid from Brooklyn wanting to make music and he was sucked into Treyway without knowing what was going on and they ended up robbing him, both for his show money and literally pistol whipping and kidnapping him, robbing him, then him testifying against them, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be so bad, but that's definitely not what happened. On the first day of testimony, 6ix9ine himself said that he originally contacted the 9 Trey gang so they could appear in his breakout video, Gummo. He said, quote, "I wanted the aesthetic to be full of 9 Trey. Red is what a Blood member would wear, so I want the video to be full of red. So before the video shoot, I went to go buy 3,000 red bandanas." Think about that. He went and bought red bandanas and went over there and had them put them on. Here's a picture of Tekashi 6ix9ine holding an assault rifle in his apartment. So he was down with the program, at least in terms of the visuals and the economic benefits it was going to get him. 6ix9ine testified that he met his future manager, Kafano Shotti Jordan, who was a 9 Trey member who just got sentenced to 15 years in prison and federal weapons charges on the day of the Gummo video shoot. Now, some of the leading 9 Treys apparently weren't feeling Tekashi, like Mel Murder, who the feds considered the leading 9 Trey on the streets. And Tekashi met Kafano at the Madison Street home in Brooklyn, where the video was filmed, and Shotti was supposedly the second in command of 9 Trey on the streets, and he became the rapper's manager. The video, which features stacks of cash, bags of weed, and 9 Trey associates flashing real guns at the camera, was an instant hit. I think it has maybe 500 million views on YouTube. Now, under oath, Tekashi recalled his conversation with Shotti. Shotti said to him, quote, "This little N knows what he's doing. I thought all that rainbow hair stuff was, that he was bugging out. But he knows what he's doing. Tell him to stay in touch." That's what Tekashi testified Shotti said, and that started their mutually beneficial, for a brief time, arrangement for the rapper and the gang. Tekashi testified he met Aljermiah Nuke Mack, who was accused of dealing heroin for 9 Trey at that same Madison Avenue house that day. Tekashi also claimed he crossed paths with accused gang member on trial, Anthony Harv Ellison, at the same place. And that's the guy who ended up robbing him for his jewelry and kidnapping him, and he just got convicted yesterday. Tekashi estimates he gave $85,000 to Jordan and Ellison before the gang broke into 2 rival factions over him. And testimony during the trial that concluded Thursday revealed that Kafano Shotti Jordan saw Tekashi as an invaluable source of revenue, but Ellison saw Tekashi as a fake who was all talk, which turned out to be true. "Stop picking and choosing when you want to be gangster," Ellison texted Tekashi 6ix9ine. Now, the fallout came to a head when Ellison kidnapped and robbed Tekashi at gunpoint at the intersection of Atlantic and Bedford Avenue in July of 2018. According to the feds, the 9 Trey Blood gang hierarchy takes orders from the prison lineup, the bosses who are behind bars. And Mel Murder Jones was supposedly the #1 in charge on the street, and he recently, well, I think a few months back, admitted in Manhattan federal court to participating in the 9 Trey racketeering operation and acting as a courier of heroin and fentanyl on 2 occasions. He took a plea where prosecutors won't seek a sentence greater than 14 years. I'm not sure if he's been sentenced yet. Shotti was caught on a wiretap shortly before his arrest, and after Tekashi fired him and Treyway and got with Elliot Grange, saying that Tekashi would face grave consequences for deciding to split from his 9 Trey entourage. So Tekashi 6ix9ine definitely knew the financial value of being locked in with the real Blood gang. 9 Trey is probably the most widespread and well-known of the New York sets. There's recently been Rico convictions of people calling themselves 9 Trey in Virginia, and a few years ago, Don Diva did a cover story about an Atlanta group of 9 Treys led by a guy named Daryl Mack Jones Christmas. Those 9 Treys in Atlanta, you know, didn't have a lot of money. They ended up killing a couple of young members of their own gang. They got life sentences. And Mack Jones apparently wasn't too popular, as he got stabbed to death in Georgia State Prison not long into his sentence. Now, I have no idea if these guys in other states are actually affiliated with the New York 9 Trey. They might not be. During the Treyway New York trial, prosecutors showed the jurors clips of the videos for Gummo and Kuda and presented lyrics for those songs as evidence. Now, Shotti doesn't seem to have been in on Tekashi's robbery, but other 9 Treys, like led by Ellison, weren't the biggest fan of Shotti, but Shotti apparently was an active enforcer for them, and he himself bragged about shooting 5 people in a single night on behalf of 9 Trey. As you can see, Shotti took a lot of pleasure in being Tekashi's primary promoter and protector and big brother, but he also took Tekashi with him during some of the criminal acts they ended up pleading guilty to. A fatal mistake. Both Shotti and Tekashi 6ix9ine played with fire, and they both got burned. Looks like Shotti got burned a lot worse. From as best as I can tell, though, the event that caused Tekashi to jump ship was finding out that he wasn't getting all the money he had coming, probably because Shotti and others were taking a big chunk from the concert dates. But that's an old thing in the music business. The performer always thinks he could have done it without his management, and often management feels they made the artist. Shotti said Tekashi lied about him stealing money right before the indictment came down in order to distance himself from his co-defendants and to avoid criminal charges. The Treyway Entertainment founder, Shotti, also claimed 6ix9ine was contacted just days before his Breakfast Club appearance, and that's probably what prompted all the, firing and etc., which sounds just as believable as anything. And if it's true, it makes Tekashi look like a real snake. So that's why you have contracts in the music business, but it happened all so fast, and most of the people involved don't exactly seem like signing contract types. By the end of his testimony, Tekashi 6ix9ine, aka Daniel Hernandez, was pointing a finger at rappers that really had nothing to do with anything, like Cardi B, who's now even a bigger pop culture phenomenon than he was, telling the court she was a Blood, and referring to Jim Jones as a retired rapper and 9 Trey member. In the end, Shotti and Tekashi weren't real friends. They were just useful to each other until they weren't, and it ended very badly. As the story goes, according to the feds, the straw that broke the camel's back for Tekashi deciding to flip on his gang was the feds telling him they had a phone call wiretapped where Shotti and others talked about a plan to have Tekashi gunned down in Las Vegas, Tupac style, by their own people posing as LA gang members to muddy the waters of the investigation. And remember, Tekashi had the West Coast Bloods on his head, most famously Slim 400, who came straight from the county jail to my place for an interview back a while ago.
Bumping to be exact. Shout out to J Joker, Our Prophet, and American Dope. We going up. Hold up. You really get into detail within your questions, and you get down and dirty with your shit.
And my personal friend, J Joker, who I know from Detroit, and he's also from San Bernardino, and he rolled up on Tekashi all by himself when Tekashi came to town, and he told him a few things. Here's the footage.
Man, there's 1,000 dudes in penitentiaries. So a lot of people lost their lives, men, women, children, behind this culture. and to be disrespecting it as if it don't matter. I don't give a fuck about the other niggas who, oh, you gotta check in, or you gotta do this, you gotta tap in, that's irrelevant. Just respect the land. Respect the soil.
Links to Slim 400 and Jay Joker's interviews are below. Gangsters Rap, Tekashi and Treyway, the story's still going on, so we'll still have more for you. American Dope, remember, subscribe and go on to Amazon, watch my American Dope series that I can't put on here because it's too political. Share it on social media, leave a review. Episode 1, Cold War Heroin Heat. Episode 2, Acid Dreams. Episode 3, White Powder, Black Power. Boom. Just like that.